Und wie gesagt, was hier läuft, ist die erste für mich, vielleicht auch für Würzburg, eine Verbindung zwischen England, Großbritannien und Würzburg. Und dazu kommen wir noch bei der Präsentation. Also liebe Würzburger, liebe Würzburgerinnen, liebe Europäer, liebe Frangin, es freut mich, dass Sie hier sind. Ich bin hier nicht alleine. Die Bryony ist am Freitag eingetroffen in Nürnberg und sie bleibt bis Mittwoch. Und in der Zeit gibt es viel in Franken zu sehen und auch in Würzburg. Ich bin hier Chris Hammond und ich bin Vorsitzender von East Kent European Movement. Das ist ein Teil von der europäischen Bewegung in Großbritannien. Es gibt auch in Schottland eine Branche oder eine selbstständige Organisation. Draußen auf unserem Stand können Sie sehen, wie viele Gruppen es eigentlich sind. Und hier auf der Präsentation. Wir werden zuerst Bilder von Würzburg sehen. Ich habe nicht genug Zeit gehabt, die allerschönsten Bilder von dieser wunderschönen fränkischen Stadt zu zeigen. Aber ich würde sagen, wir fangen gleich mal an, damit dann die Sache läuft. And for all of you listening in England, I've just welcomed all the guests here. You will see the guests later because we're going to turn the camera, and when they are asking, you will be able to see them, and we will be able to see you on the screen. And the big screen is available. That's when I'm sharing the screen. We've got a technician here, and he will be clicking to start us off, I believe. Yes, Jakob is from the Umweltstation. So we can anfangen. He's going to click the button to go share screen. All our techno friends here will know what to do, like Jakob. Niemand muss angeschaltet werden. Just to fill the silence, Bryony has come from East Kent as well, and we're both on the National Council of the European Movement. Kent is well represented. We've got 7 people out of just over 100. And so we're very pleased to be part of that. And she runs the IMOS Foundation. There are slides which show that. I'm here, I've got a flat here in Berchtesgaden, and so I commute between Canterbury and Berchtesgaden. And the reason that I'm here is partly because of Elisabeth and Peter, who are my close friends who live here, and they've made it very possible for me actually to get the Deutsche Staatsbürgerschaft and to get even a woman and so on. So first of all, I thank both of you openly and publicly. Also ich bedanke mich öffentlich und das ohne euch wäre es nicht gegangen. Also, okay, right, so that's just the general introduction, and we'll move picture. So for you people back in Britain, where is Würzburg? I've just put this up here and to show you generally the general map of Germany. We live in northern part of Bavaria. Click. And so they're the key facts. Where is Würzburg? Unterfranken, Lower Franconia. It's on the River Main. That's why I put Frankfurt, because that's on Frankfurt am Main. And it's in southern Germany. And I will point, no, is this here? So Würzburg is there. You see Germany has the plain, the Northern European plain, the North German plain, Mittelgebirge, mountains, then the Alpenvorland, and then here the Alps. So Würzburg is very well central. Next. I've even put a motorway map. The R7, the A7, goes from Denmark to Austria. Look where Würzburg is, right at the crossroads of the R3, which goes from Holland to Southeast Europe, and from Scandinavia to Southern Europe. Würzburg is a very important place. Next. Look at where Würzburg is. It's surrounded by beautiful countryside. All of these are ranges of hills and woods and forests. You can go walking there. Really, I'm talking to the people in England. People here know that. They know they live in a lovely town. And it's on the River Main here. Okay, next. So we are at the Mittelpunkt der EU, the center of the EU, and thanks to Brexit. And so with one respect, you've gained something in Würzburg. But someone in the Kreuzheimer tourist, she said, to me, it represents a loss for Europe. Ein Verlust. So here we are. There it is. You see the whole of Europe. There it is. And I did this from Canterbury, which is where I live. And here we go, zooming in. There it is, placed in Germany. It used to be northwest of Frankfurt. Next. And we're zooming in just to show you again Frankfurt, Nuremberg, Würzburg, an hour roughly to each. And there it is. That's the center of the EU. And here, close to Würzburg, I live out here in Bergheim. There is the River Main. There's the center of Europe. We've got the Main-Dreieck. The River Main forms a triangle. And they call this the Main-Dreieck. Next. Again, another picture. We won't stay long here. That's what it looks like at the place itself. It explains how it was achieved, and it tells you the exact position. Next. This is what it looks like at the center. Facts about the European Union. Oh, Brexit. Britain leaves the EU. How is it measured? And here's the very good, exceptionally good history about the Brexit process. So do come to Würzburg, you people back in Britain, and you have a chance to go to that. Next. This is Würzburg, the River Main. This is an old crane. This is a slightly older pamphlet, but even then, before it was the center of Europe, it was still, the Würzburgers still thought of it as the heart of Germany, with lots of history, culture, and wine. And that's the old Schloss, where the Prince Bishops used to live. There's the Kepler, which means small chapel. In fact, it's very big. On we go. Next. There's this is taken from a prospectus some time ago. That's the inner city. The cathedral is just down here. The castle you saw on the hill is just down here. Here's the River Main. And the residence that's the new Schloss or chateau, or castle is the wrong English word. Next. And we've got another view of it. There it is. This is wine. And just around the corner, there's more wine. Over here, there's more wine. They certainly know where to put the vineyards. Okay, next. That's just a map. Next. And here's an aerial photo taken from a calendar. But you can see this is the residence, the new Prince Bishop. It was something of huge dimensions, and it is well worth seeing. Apparently, the corridor going through here is longer by 2 meters than the corridor in Versailles. Next. This is one of the rooms, and you can see it's Baroque, late Baroque going into Rococo. And when you go in there, as the tour guide always used to say, you think you're drunk because you think you've drunk too much wine the night before, because you ask yourself about this dog and about this leg, and all around you think, is it actually painting or is it sticking out? And in fact, it is sticking out. So it's wonderful. Next. This is called the Spiegelsaal, the mirror cabinet. It was, they tried to save it during the war, but they couldn't, the glass cracked. But it's back glass painting. You have to paint beginning with the eye. And there is a photo next of more detail. And they managed to repair this in about 1988. It cost over 6 million marks, then 3 million euros roughly, just to do this room. Next. Here are a few shots of nice buildings in Würzburg. The Falkenhaus, which used to be an inn, nice place to go and stay. And here's the, again, another chapel, they call it, in the town centre. Slightly older pictures. I do apologise to Würzburgers, but I honestly didn't have time. Next. And again, here's some older pictures of Würzburg when I was doing the exchange in the 90s and 2000s. They have trams going through the main high street. Next. There are many churches in Würzburg. This is the cathedral. It doesn't look that inviting here, but it does certainly extend, and there are several building styles in it. And again, this is all pedestrian precinct now. It's much better. Yesterday, there were swarms of people. Everybody was out in Burtsburg, and they are here today. I wish you could come from England to what's going on outside this room. It's International Spring and Europe Day, and there are lots of activities for children and so on. Next. Unfortunately, on the 16th of March, 1945, RAF bombers came across and in 17 minutes destroyed 95% of Würzburg. And Würzburg accidentally got onto a list over in Britain at the time, and this is nothing to be proud about. Also, a lot of the buildings were wood, and so it burnt very well, which is it's the same attitude in a sense as is going on in Ukraine at the moment. So my friends here, Peter, he lived close to the town centre. His building was not destroyed. Next. Okay, we missed one picture, but that doesn't matter. This used to be, oh, that's it. Yeah, Würzburg and wine. This is an old Werbespot for Würzburg. People didn't like it here. Würzburg, das Weinfass in der Autobahn. So war das irgendwann, hat Peter mir erzählt. This was an unsuccessful advertisement for Würzburg. But I can guarantee you there are a lot of wine barrels, including very big ones. Beamten wine, there's a big barrel. Also, it's got the second oldest bottle of wine in Germany, here in Würzburg, and you're not allowed to drink from it. In Bremen, we've got the oldest, and you are allowed to drink a bit. Next. So you go out of Würzburg, and you've got vineyards along all the slopes. This place is Sommerhausen, and it's idyllic. It is absolutely romantically idyllic, and it's wonderful. And it's not the only place. There are many places. Each village is picturesque. Each village is inviting. Each village has many wine bars and hotels and Gaststätten. Please come to Würzburg. It really is worth it. Next. And here we are. This is the typical bottle from this region. It's called the Boxbeutel, and good quality wine will come in this shape, 0.75. And they've got Frankenwein, that's the area. It's not the smallest growing area in Germany. Next. If you go further south, Würzburg is on the Romantics Road, and it starts at Würzburg and it goes south to the Austrian border. Würzburg is the calendar picture town of Germany. And here, this is probably the most famous picture that you'll see on many calendars. And this is in the town centre of Würzburg. It's got a lot of, well, it did have a lot of Japanese, American tourists, etc. It's about an hour south, and it's wonderful. Next. Again, just a few pictures of Würzburg. And let's get on to, I think, the next. There we are, another final picture. I could have put lots of pictures of this area, but I think we'll get on to the second part, which is for our German audience. So I may be speaking a bit in German to explain, and we'll click on. Here we go. 2 moments of history, according to Neil McGregor, who is studied German at Oxford, and he was the person in charge of the British Museum. Angela Merkel went along to him and said, "Excuse me, but could you come across to Berlin to our Humboldt Institute?" And he said, "Yes, I'd love to." And so he left the British Museum and went to Germany. But before he did, he wrote this book, 30 Objects to Explain German History. And it was a program in Britain. Soll ich jetzt auf Deutsch reden oder geht das auf Englisch? Wenn ich übersetzen soll, sagen Sie. Yeah? Okay, next. So, 9th of November, well, everyone here knows what that is, and we in Britain really should know. Very important date for the new Europe. It started in Eastern Germany, and that on the 9th was in Berlin, which is now, of course, the capital of, has been the capital of Germany. And he said, that was my best historical moment, that was my worst historical moment. So, I'm not going to spend long, but you could split the time into different phases, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So phase 1, Britain should have left on the 29th of March. It didn't, because we expected an extension, and then another extension, and so on. So then, taking it from that date until the election, the general election where Boris Johnson was elected, and from then, that date till now. I won't talk about the bottom 2, it's in the future. But we've got plans for the future. Next. So not long on this, key fact is, if you think that all Britons don't want the EU, that is wrong. That is definitely wrong. 16 million wanted to stay. 17 million wanted to leave. And some were protesting against the government. So not all of those necessarily were voting to leave the EU. They just wanted to protest against the government. 16 million next, and there's the map. So there's the referendum figure. On the 29th of March, the government said rejected the petition, but 6,103,000 signed the petition. That is a huge number. This was on the 24th was a Sunday, and there were only 4 million on the 24th. In 4 days, 2 more million answered that petition to revoke wieder. Hatte ich gestern, rückgängig machen, Artikel 50, which, by the way, was written by someone who was British working in the commission. We had 4 national marches in London on these dates. And I think on the last one, it was the German ZDF said no, it wasn't 1.5, it was 2 million. Thank you to the ZDF for raising those numbers, but they've got their method of doing it. So we believe it's ZDF. So what have we been doing? A street stall, like outside. We leaflet, we go to houses with leaflets. We stand on motorway bridges with flags and a banner, transparent. Mr. Steve Bray is Mr. Stop Brexit, who stood in front of Parliament and had an effect on the Parliament, because parliamentarians, politicians came out and said, thank you very much for being here. We can hear you inside of the Houses of Parliament. which shows, by the way, that it needs renovating. And then we've been writing letters and lobbying our own members of parliament. Next. So, the 13th of December, an unlucky day for some and many. Bryony says she wasn't depressed. I wasn't depressed, but we were mourning, perhaps some of us. We regret it because we were fighting for a second referendum. And if it hadn't been for one or two politicians, we probably would have got there in 2020. And of course, Boris Johnson said, yeah, okay, let's have an election. And our electoral system meant that he got a huge majority on less percent of votes. Get Brexit done was his wording. That's why we had get Boris gone. That was on the 24th of December, one day to read the whole TCA, 500 pages. You can't do that in a day. It was just pushed through Parliament, like everything else is being pushed through by this government. I'm a bit anti this government. So Grassroots for Europe, one of the groups, that's the time and the date when we left. And I was on the square in Canterbury and we sang the ode Freude an die
Freude, schöne Götterfunke.
Ode an die Freude.
Ode an die Freude, exactly. Several of us in German as well. And we believe we're forever European. We will not cease being European. And then, of course, came Corona. So what have we been doing in the time? Well, we've had Zoom meetings. That's the era of Zoom. We've had webinars on Zoom, and we've been influencing people. Next. Just a few facts. Every Wednesday, the Grassroots for Europe have a meeting. On the Summer of Europe, we said, well, the Festival of Europe, I was the second person to join that, and it's sort of clicking over, but we want to make it so that people in Britain are aware that they are European. We're doing everything we can to show we are European, and Brian is doing a hell of a lot as well. More about that later. So they had a national council. There are many national groups. To put them together, we have a round table, and then this, which I'll explain later. Next. See, this is the European movement, which has been going since 1949. And it's got 14,000. The aim is 100,000, but it's got 160,000 supporters and that many groups. On this here, you can see the numbers of groups in each area. In the center, 65 groups. If you zoom in, you'll see where those groups are. There's a president, Heseltine. There's two vice presidents, patrons, and an executive. They meet regularly. The National Council, we're on that. We meet every 2 months. The Young European Movement, if you're 35 or less, you can join the Young European Movement. In Scotland, they've got their own, and there is a European Movement International. Next. There we are. You see, for example, even in London, a big town, it's still got 15, 19, it's got 22 groups just in London. Berkshire, Oxfordshire region, Oxford for Europe, Bath for Europe, Swindon for Europe. All these groups. And Swindon, I know the chap, he's active, he's out there every day with his beret and persuading people, particularly young people. Okay, next. I'm not going to ask you to read everything, but these are a list of the main groups in Britain that are all pro-EU. And how do they talk to each other? It's stupid having so many groups. Why don't you just have one? Well, there are little nuances, there are little differences, and let that be. Let it be federal. And we've got so that they all talk to each other. We have the round table. I think that's based on Cunarder, isn't it? So around the round table, it meets once a month, and they talk to each other. So It's not that they're all going in different directions. They are coming together at the round table next. I'm not going to ask you to read all this, but there are two aspects to pro-EU future strategies. One, we need to promote the idea of Europe and the benefits of the EU, which is what we're doing. And Brian, specifically, this side is what Brian likes. This side is what I like. This is more the political stuff. So we need to protect our democracy, and we need to reform our democracy. And so back over here, some of these are our aims. We need to promote knowledge and understanding of the EU. We've got to maintain existing links. We want to establish new links here in Würzburg, for instance. Euro walks we're bringing in, Euro cafes. There's a lot going on. Musicians can't tour the young continent. They're not allowed to. They're not allowed to work in on the continent, in the EU. And that's because, thank you to our wonderful Prime Minister. And over here, what we need to do is encourage progressive, international, multicultural, tolerance, liberal, pro-democracy, pro-human rights ethos. We need to reform our electoral system from first past the post to PR, proportional representation. Germany has got one of the best examples of proportional representation, I think. We need a written constitution, and we need to influence all these parties to get them on board for them to accept proportional representation so that they can form a coalition, and then a certain party will not really be able to dominate. Next.
Just a short question, how many more weeks do we have?
Let
me take a quick look at the chat. If there are technical problems. Otherwise we can...
Magdalena here, she lives in southeast London.
Okay, now then we can discuss the chat after when you're done.
Yeah, okay, right. Good to see, and Jane, who lives in Canterbury. Okay, next. And Helen in Staffordshire. Got a slight technical problem. No, we haven't. Oh, we've gone on. Oh, is that the next? Yeah. So Euro walks. Why Euro walks? Scotland got this whole thing going. Scotland, of course, is more EU pro than England. But what is a Euro walk? We need to discover how much we've got in Britain that is actually linked to Europe at all. We want to introduce them to arouse, to raise curiosity about the European nature of much of Britain, so that people realize we're part of a European culture, and it's to find locations, buildings, which are originally European. Canterbury Cathedral was built with stone from Caen, which is the partner town of Würzburg, right? So there's a link. We're all linked. Recently in Rainham, which is a town in Kent, they did some Ausgrabungen, some can't think of the English word, diggings, archaeological diggings, and they found skeletons, and they've analysed them, and these skeletons are, sage und schreibe, Franken. There's another link, they're Franconian. Why? Queen Bertha, who was a Franke from Merovingia, she married King Ethelbert of Kent. Kent practically was a colony of the then Franconian Empire, which expanded eastwards from Tournai, etc., and it still exists here, folks, in England, here in Franconia. There's another link to Franken from Kent. And Eurowalk on last weekend, the 7th, Dundee, the partner town of Würzburg, up in Scotland, opened up the launch of their Dundee Euro Walk. So Dundee, together with about 4 other Scottish towns, is doing a Euro Walk. And maybe that's thanks to some people from Würzburg in Dundee. Next. We need to influence people by journalism. And so Yorkshire began in April 2020 with the Yorkshire bylines. And the articles are excellent. They're on the standard of The Guardian and other top papers. It then expanded, and down here, we can't see it because this, Kent was asked to go on board in September 2020. We launched in January 2021, and Charlotte, who can't be here or there, she's the editor. Bryony's written an article. I've written 2 articles about the German election system and towards a progressive alliance. And we produce 1 article a day. Yorkshire produces about 3 or 4 a day. But we've got a small team, and we're doing what we can. So we want to influence people by this. Next. This is over to Bryony. She is the big chief of the IMOS Foundation. And what is it? Well, it's an art charity begun by Bryony, who's here with us, people in England. She flew over, she recommends you come over too. And she's done a portrait of Europe. Do you want to talk?
Well.
Do you want to come in? This wasn't planned. Okay, so there you go. There's the camera. There the people. What happened?
Well, we began this charity in 2008 and slowly expanded. Because we're very close to the Kent coast, we see ourselves as welcoming people from the continent. And that led us to develop all sorts of European exhibitions and programs. And of course, the entire political impetus towards Brexit made us want to do political adventures towards Europe. So we sent an artist to each of the 28 countries of the European Union and asked them to find a European from that country and paint their portrait. So all the portraits came back. We had 28 Europeans, which we took all around the United Kingdom on an exhibition, but it failed to prevent a Brexit, I regret to say. So now we have started a sculpture park in which we're putting prominent figures from all European countries who have benefited humanity. Prominent figures from all around the world, in fact, but there are a lot of them from Europe, and from Germany we already have Beethoven, and we will be collecting more. So if any of you are good sculptors or know good sculptors, please send them to us and they can do a figure for us. Thank you.
Okay, we just return to the slideshow. We're almost finished on the slideshow. Those of you in England, we've noticed there may be some questions, and so we'll get on to some of the questions soon, and there may be some questions here. Right, there we are. So Bryony was talking about the portraits. I chose this one particularly because the still life picture shows you which country they come from. Anyone guess which country that might be? So we've got their vehicle. That's right. In fact, there's Einstein, Beethoven, and there's Gandhi. There are many more. It's a fantastic place, and it's near an old church, which is in ruin. Lovely place to see, and it's called the Hopewell St. Sculpture Park. The Marsh flag, there's more on that. Next. Where is Romney Marsh? Where does Bryony live? She lives in New Romney. Here's London. There's Canterbury, Dover, France, EU. And here in New Romney, that's where she lives with her sculpture park. And this area is Romney Marsh. It's the 5th continent. They're very important people there. You can explain. But in Kent, we've got several groups. There's East Kent, which is this area, Mid Kent, European Movement, and West Kent, and Sevenoaks, Swanley, Tunbridge in Europe, Susty. And Magdalena, who's on this call, she comes from this part of London. She's been in Spain. She's done a tour. She's originally from Hungary, came out in 1956. She was a refugee then, and she feels partly, if I can speak for you, Magdalena, that she's a refugee now from Britain. Okay, next. And we're almost finished here. This is a very important event. On Tuesday, next Tuesday at 10:30 at the Mittelpunkt, the centre of Europe, the British flag, it is not the flag of Britain, it is a British flag of Romney Marsh, is going to be raised with a little ceremony. And Bryony will be there, in fact, Peter and Elizabeth will be there. Anyone else is welcome, but do let me know. This is typical for Romney Marsh. Sheep, kingfishers, herons, Eisvogel, heron, Vaya, thank you. Martello towers against Napoleon, fishing boats, many churches, and the Dungeness lighthouse, and that is a nuclear power station. That's why they all glow on Romney Marsh. Okay, and this is taken there, so this is actually in Estonia, the picture, which Brian sent me. And I think there may be one more, and that, yes. So there's me, and there's Bryony. She's our ECHEM, East Kent European Movement Arts and Culture Officer. And she's on the National Council, like I am. I'm on the chair. I am the chair of East Kent for Europe. And I'm on the Summer of Europe, sort of, they've given me this big title, European Community Liaison. I'm only starting today. And I help on Kent bylines. Right, that's the talk over. There are some questions, but so thank you very much for listening. Do we have, I'll let Jakob have a look to see if there are some questions. We can see what the chat has to say. Oh yes, a very good point by Juliet Lodge, who is, I think, half German. It was Britain that helped set up the German electoral system after the war. So we've got people from Yorkshire here, Heather Watts. We've got Gwen, and as Gwen is here, I see whether there they are. People in England, we can see you. Hello, Jane. Thanks for waving. Christine, great. So, if you in England would like to ask any questions to a mixed audience here, have you any questions? We may have some questions here.
And they ask if they could have a copy of the slideshow deck for the recording.
Certainly, if they send it to my email address. Is that Craig? Have you got your hand up? No, not your hand up. Yes, Gwen.
Hello, my name's Gwen, and
wait a minute. Hang on, Gwen.
hello. Hello.
I think we can hear you, but we've
Yeah,
lost
proceed.
Okay, so hello, I'm Gwen, and I've been working with Chris and others to try and build up links with Canterbury and a German city, notably Würzburg. I know that Würzburg is twinned with.
Say it again. No, now she can hear you.
Gwen, we couldn't hear you then.
Ah, can you hear me now?
No, wait a minute, Gwen.
We can hear you in the UK, I think.
Ah.
Christine, you're nodding. That means someone. So, mate, can you in England? Can you hear each other?
Can you hear me?
In
Yes,
Nürnberg,
you can.
wir hören euch in Nürnberg.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nürnberg auch, okay. Ja, wir sind eine
Gwen, I'll tell you when we can hear you. I'm sorry. We're just looking for the right switch.
And they keep talking.
Keep talking. Someone, Gwen, say
Ja?
something.
Ja, wir sind eine Gruppe in Canterbury und wir wollen, dass Canterbury vielleicht eine Schwesterstadt wird von Würzburg. We would like Canterbury to become a sister town. We know that you're twinned with Dundee, but
When we're still haven't got sound this end.
okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me in the UK on Zoom?
Ja, wir können, ja.
Ja,
Yeah,
schön.
we can hear you.
Also ich möchte halt sagen, dass Chris und ich seit einiger Zeit versuchen, dass wir Verbindungen zwischen Würzburg und Canterbury.
We can hear you.
Ja, schön. Und ich weiß, dass Canterbury, dass Dundee und Würzburg Partnerstädte sind, aber wir wollen wirklich, dass Canterbury und Würzburg vielleicht Schwesterstädte, Sister Towns werden und dass wir diese Verbindung, diese Freundschaft zwischen uns weiter entwickeln können.
Started as she was a German teacher, and I've been working a bit with her. We really would like to start something with Würzburg, and at the stand we've got a list, and you can sign names there. So anyone in the room that wants to, do come to our stand, and we can talk about it, and we can explain this end. But Gwen has got a lot of people in Britain, in Canterbury, who have signed up, and they would like to just meet other people, at first on Zoom. And if you think, invite people perhaps to England, maybe you strike up a friendship and you invite them here. And we know that Dundee is the official partnership, but we want to start from the grassroots upwards rather than from the Stadt runter, sozusagen.
Yeah, and thank you also for all those people who signed up to our list who are here today on the Zoom today. That's great to see your names listening in. That's great. Yeah, it would be really good to develop that, and I'm very grateful to Chris for his support.
Any other questions or points? Magdalena, hast du irgendwas? Stummschaltung.
Ja, ich dachte, vielleicht könnte das Goethe-Institut in London auch mitwirken. Und Pulse of Europe, finde ich, ist auch nicht genug unterstützt. Das ist ja auch überall in Europa, Leute, die eben Europa feiern, müssen vielleicht diese Kontakte auch pflegen.
Magdalena, that's great. Danke. Wir haben eine von Pulse of Europe, Würzburg, der sitzt hier. Und der ist gegenüber von uns, von unserem Stand. Und da werden wir gemeinsam sprechen. Okay. I noticed that Andrew Niblett is here. Andrew Niblett, he's got a flat in Nuremberg, and I got to know him in WhatsApp, and now I visit him. He's like me. He yo-yos between Britain and Würzburg, funky as well. So thank you, Magdalena. Any other points from England? Any points from Germany to the English? Yes, we've got a question here. Yeah. Right, we're turning the camera now, not to me, because I'm not important. The audience is very important. And I think, yes.
Could somebody please close the curtains, because then the man might see you other than dark silhouettes.
I saw Juliet Lodge have the hand. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris,
Juliet, just hang on a minute.
thank you.
We've got a question here from the audience. So we'll get a question from the audience from
Alban. Alban, nice to meet you. Well, this may be a bit off subject for today, but this will
bit louder perhaps. Although he's a bit
louder. Can you hear me correctly?
Can you hear him back in England?
Yes, very clearly.
Very clearly. It's an excellent microphone.
I can hear that.
Good.
Yes, my question that, and it just seems, yes, that this presentation for me begs to be answered is why does the government still refuse us to make another referendum? Why is it still stuck on the way to the downfall of the great?
If I have understood the question, why did they refuse to have a second referendum?
Why are they still refusing right now?
Well,
I mean, what is not working? What's the block really? What's jamming your work?
what is stopping a second referendum now? Does anyone on screen want to? Oh dear. Right, let's take them. Heather and Craig, if you'd like to unmute. Thank you.
Ja, guten Tag, unsere deutsche Freunde. Ich würde sagen, zuerst ist es unsere Regierung. Die wollen einen zweiten Referendum gar nicht.
No, I mean, I know that. I mean, of course, they're the one in charge, but why? Who does it profit to not have a second referendum?
If
or
I may.
Britain simply too proud to just admit they were wrong?
No, if I may, I think the conspiracy runs a lot deeper than that. There are projects alive amongst the rich and shameless in this country who are determined to protect their wealth from European tax legislation, which was going to shut down all those tax havens that people in our government and their financial supporters didn't want shut down. The whole project had nothing to do really with our membership of the European Union and how much we have gained as a people from coming together after centuries of conflict. It all had to do with how the rich wanted to protect their money, and they hoodwinked the uneducated British people who have no real desire to understand politics anyway and how it operates. They hoodwinked those people into believing that we were taking back a sovereignty that we had never lost in the first place. It is a big, huge financial conspiracy. That's what it's about.
Thank you for that answer.
I'm sorry to say it. It grieves me such.
Heather and Craig, thank you. I mean, that your emotion came across here very well, and I think it's appreciated here as well. I think this is fantastic that we're talking with people in England, here in Germany, directly with each other. Several hands. If you can use the normal button, I think Jane originally had the next question. Jane, if you'd like. No, Juliet. Juliet had his hand up a long time. Juliet.
Right, thanks very much. It's just a really quick one. If we could have the contact for the sculpture initiative. I think there's a lot of groups who are doing things like open art houses who might be able to contribute to that very effectively. And the second point was just to reiterate how heartbroken a lot of people are in Britain about the referendum, and particularly about the illegal procurement of the result. And that is not terribly well known, but the newspaper Bylines, which is associated with the regional bylines, has run some incredibly important and interesting stories on the degree of corruption And that was also exemplified in the European Parliament by many, many MPs from many different countries. Thank you.
Just to say, Juliet, that she has a house somewhere in Rhineland-Pfalz and is like me, she comes regularly to Germany. Is that correct, Juliet?
Yes, yes.
I think near the Mosel and Hunsrück.
Yeah, yeah, wunderbar.
Wunderbar. Wunderbar. Yeah. And as you can see, she's a professor. She's been involved. Juliet, what was your position as a professor?
Professor of European politics.
Okay.
EU
where,
politics.
Where?
Auckland, various universities in Europe, and last one was Leeds.
Leeds.
North, yeah.
Okay, right. Jane, you had your hand up. Next. Yes.
Hi, hello there. Entschuldigung, ich spreche keine Deutsch. I can have to do this in English. I just wanted to say that I completely agree with Craig's point, the fact that it was to do with a sort of financial conspiracy, absolutely. But also more than that, it wasn't just the financial people. We have the hard left of the Labour Party. Jeremy Corbyn does not want to be part of Europe. So, and the hard right are using it as an opportunity. So we have some quite big, deep issues here that need sorting out. It's not just a technical problem, and we need to address them. The whole question of identity is one of them. Britain needs to sort these problems out, and we will, but we can't underestimate the depth that this is to do with a kind of Trumpian authoritarian attack on liberal democracies, which all of Europe is going to have to face. So I would love to work with people from Würzburg to try and defend our liberal democracies. And Würzburg looks lovely, and I would love to visit, and Canterbury, come to see in Canterbury as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Stephen, you've got a question.
Hallo, guten Morgen alles. Leider habe ich fast alles mein Deutsch vergessen, deshalb muss ich meine Frage auf Englisch gemacht.
Well, that's certainly going well so far.
Okay, right, it's come back. Okay, just following on, well, to answering the point from about the referendum and why there isn't a second one. I think I agree completely with the two previous respondents. I think to sum up as well, unfortunately, with the British voting system, it's a vote loser. You know, with first past the post, it's very undemocratic. People are essentially forced to vote for one of two parties. A lot of people, I don't know the German expression, but they hold their nose while voting because they want to keep somebody out rather than put their own choice in. Unfortunately, you've also got a very pliable and I don't want to say ill-educated population, but a population that isn't very good at critical thinking. In other words, it believes what it sees in the media. And there now seems to be a narrative that if you are pro-European, you are automatically anti-British scum. I mean, I'd even say if you don't support the Tory party, in some cases, you are anti-British. That now seems to be the narrative. So it's very, very hard to work against that when you've got this kind of bile, for want of a better way of putting it, coming towards you. And, you know, it would be a very brave main party leader that stood out on that platform now, I think.
Can I just answer, Stephen, those are excellent points. Thank you. You know, putting them so compactly on the spot, you know, in the Zoom, came across very well. Thank you, as did all the other speakers previous to this. Stephen, can I just ask, is there some Scottish background there with you?
Yeah, I come in Shotty, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, vielen Dank.
Heather and Craig again, unmute.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Stephen just said, because I don't think many people appreciate, outside Britain anyway, who are not on the stalls and the street marches, just how vile things became in this country, and they still are, towards those of us who still feel very passionately about our European identities, to the extent that it is not unheard of to have your lives threatened just for asking the question about whether you think the outcome so far of the Brexit referendum was worth it for us? Do we feel we have got something out of it that we promised we were going to get out of it? And just from asking questions like that, because we feel so strongly about still being Europeans, politically speaking, our lives are often threatened. I mean, I had somebody say he would like to kill me just for asking the question. And it's often that people are pushed and shoved. It's almost as if the winning vote are unhappy with having won, because when you ask the question, they don't gloat about winning or celebrate their victory. They actually get angry,
very aggressive,
with those who are still talking about it. So it is something that's very palpable here. And we are, even if you like to display your European identity by having the flag in your car or at your house, you're liable to be attacked for it. It is very palpable here.
And also Russian.
Oh yes, and before we forget, somebody has mentioned in the chat that this project was also, and it's very relevant today, considering what's happening in our poor cousin nation, the Ukraine, that the project was also supported quite heavily by the Russian authorities. There is a recording of a Russian diplomat in this country shortly after the referendum saying, now we have Britain where we want her, on her knees, a position from which she'll not recover for a very long time to come. So
his name was Alexander Yakovenko, and you can Google his name.
Heather and Craig, I've got a poster outside. I haven't put it up on the stand, but we put that up on our Jane. Thanks to Jane for finding that in Canterbury. We put that on our street stall every time, and it's exactly those words. Now we've got Britain on its knees, and as you say, they won't come back. And that's the Russians.
Yes.
That we've been influenced by the Russians. The Russians still influence through their oligarchs. They buy, I don't know, that's a bit too strong.
No, they do. They buy authority through our politicians. There's money, Russian money, flowing through our politicians.
Absolutely, so many of them. 46
MPs campaign for rejoin EU every day have put into Twitter, into Facebook, and the next member of Parliament is Theresa Villiers. She received 32,000 from Russian donation in the Tory party. So, you know,
and there are many. There are many more.
Heather and Craig, where in Britain are you?
We live 30 miles north of the beautiful city of York.
All right. So, do you have a stand in York?
There's a group that's based out of York for Europe, but we were attached to the North Yorkshire for Europe. Actually, we were part of the Remain Voice choir that sang up and down the country and marched in London, and were picked up by various newspapers around the world. So we drop into the towns in the North Yorkshire area, Harrogate, Ripon, our own place, Northallerton, where we live. But we're also involved when York for Europe are up to tricks as well.
Right, thank you. Thank you. Great to meet you for the first time, I believe. See you another time on another Zoom.
Absolutely.
Likewise.
Stephen, then Magdalena, then Sally.
Yeah, okay. A question for the German attendees of today's webinar. In Germany, do you still have the stereotype of English football hooligans?
There's some thinking going on, Stephen.
Okay, you can be honest, answer as honestly as you like. Not a loaded question, right?
This is an opportunity, you know, say what you think.
I won't be offended, don't you worry.
No. Yes, no, hands, any opinions? Yes.
We're not
German. Yes, there are.
We're not German, so it's hard to answer.
Okay, so there are non-Germans here as well. What do you think?
I mean, I'm from Sweden, and in Sweden, I would say it's the stereotype.
It is a stereotype.
Yeah.
There's a lady from Sweden speaking here. She does think that's a stereotype.
Not too bad,
but not
it's
too bad.
a saying at least, yeah.
Okay. Reason I'm asking is I think with the way the things have panned out since 2016 and the way that Leavers have behaved, it reinforces that image beautifully. I mean, they remind me of exactly of England football hooligans. No reasoning with them. We won, we're better than you, we'll fight you if there's a problem, kind of thing. And I'm thinking prior to the referendum, what played particularly well for the Leave campaign, where I used to live in Leeds, I am a member of Leeds for Europe, was the narrative that Turkey was going to join the European Union, right? That was all a load of rubbish. But the reason that has particular prescience in Leeds is because Leeds United, Leeds United had a bit of a fallout with a Turkish football team 20 years ago, where 2 Leeds fans got killed in trouble. And there's a view among some parts of people in Leeds, some Leeds United supporters, every single Turkish person is a horrible murdering racist. You know, it's complete rubbish, but that's the narrative that sticks. When they heard this this line, Turkey was joining, oh, well, we're voting Leave, we can't have that. They're all 77 million, 80 million Turks. No, not having that.
Exactly.
So
I mean, that's
we
how
don't do ourselves any favours. Sorry, go on.
Vote Leave got votes simply because of a map of Europe, Turkey in red, 70 million, a big arrow pointing to Great Britain. Oh, 70 million are going to come to Britain. Vote Leave.
And it begs the question, why would they all want to come to the UK?
Exactly.
In the nicest way. I had this article, I had this letter published in a regional paper here about Ukrainian refugees, where there was a point saying, well, they're all desperate, they're all wanting to come here because we're the land of milk and honey. I pointed out, well, would they really want to cross all of Europe for our state benefits, which are probably the worst, are among the worst in Europe? No, they won't.
Stephen, there are people laughing here. Yeah, excellent, thank you. I mean, that's brilliant.
I'm not Mr. Patriot, by the way, just in case that hasn't come across very clear. I'm not a big fan of this government, so.
I think we got the message there. Leeds for Europe is one of the most active. They've got a press officer who reads the daily press and responds to articles, and they get. That's another way that they get into the papers. Isn't that correct, Stephen?
That is, yes. And what I'm going to do in the chat for the benefit of the other Brits here that are in pro-European groups, I'm going to put down the links to the papers where we get most joy in. I think I recognise actually Heather from a North Yorkshire for Europe event the other night, where I actually gave tips on how to get the message heard. The key thing I'd say, and if you don't mind, I'll make the most of my little slot here to advertise this. Don't be afraid. Write to your local papers. Don't be afraid about not being published, because there is a very good line of thought. Every paper will have about 10 similar letters. If yours gets through, it's beaten another 10. And it's not going to cost you anything. It gets the message out. It gets the debate going. We've had quite a bit of success at our end. All I'd say, don't be shy, give it a go.
No, East Kent we need to get a press officer, and when we've got one, we'll be following behind you there, Stephen. Thank you. And Stephen, thank you so much for all those points. I think this is wonderful that we're talking with people who are sitting back in Britain. We've got an audience here, and you're getting across your ideas. It really is. It's absolutely. And welcome to Peter Burke. I noticed you put something in. Peter Burke is the chair of Oxford for Europe, and he's got a German connection and an Irish connection, and I know Peter. So there's Magdalena. Yes, we've had Sally's hand up. Magdalena, have you got a question?
No, I just wanted to add to the list of reasons for the Brexit vote. Of course, the media, which is the trashy media, which sadly a majority of people who have voted Leave most probably have read. They have been campaigning, they've been Eurosceptic and anti-EU for many, many years before the referendum already. And the second point I wanted to make is, because I was born in Hungary, I obviously observe Hungarian politics more closely than most people living in the UK. And sadly, I see parallels. I've got to mention here the bills that have just been passed in the UK. Ironically, it was the House of Lords, our unelected body, that was trying to protect our democracy, because the right to protest is now banned in certain circumstances. It's criminalized. Then we have the Nationality and Borders Bill, which makes it possible for British citizenship to be revoked as well. And it also makes it illegal to help people who are drowning if they are then discovered to be asylum seekers. So basically, you know, you see somebody in the sea and you've got to ask them first whether, before you save their lives, whether they're going to be asylum seekers or not. I mean, the electoral bill means they brought in the voter ID, which sadly, since the UK doesn't have ID cards, so it wouldn't matter in Germany because people have ID cards. But in the UK, especially poorer people and young people don't have IDs, which they would need to show in order to be able to vote. So there are lots and lots of parallels to this slow eroding of democratic principles, which they are sneaking in. And it takes my breath away that people aren't noticing and people aren't hitting the streets. I just wanted to mention that Sodom, which some people might not know about in Germany, we have a group of people who are outside, used to be outside Parliament. They're not allowed outside Parliament now, but they've been pushed into a little island in the middle of the traffic lights zone in Whitehall. I go there whenever I can regularly. In fact, my tenant is a right-hand man of Stephen Bray, who's become a bit of a VIP because he's leading the protest there. Unfortunately, it seems like it's always the same people who are hitting the streets. People are afraid, obviously, as Craig was saying, they've had bad experience, but I always wear my Forever European badge. I always have I Am European somewhere on my body. I wear, you know, bracelets, whatever, because they can take us out of Europe, but they can't take Europe out of us. That's my final point.
Magdalena, thank you. We've got people banging at the door. They've got something here and they're already 10 minutes late. Sally, is your question very, very quick and short?
Yes, I want to put forward something that's a little bit more positive, though, that I'm lucky to live. I'm the vice chair of European Movement, Wandsworth and Merton, happy to live in that area of London. We turned our local council, got rid of the Tories after 44 years the other day, and we were the only part of London that removed a Tory MP at the last general election. We regularly hold street stalls, and we've done a business survey on the effect, which has been published, on the effects of Brexit, and I'm sure you know the results of that. So I know I'm lucky to live in South London, and London is almost a state of its own now, but it is an example of what can be achieved. That's just one thing I wanted to put in the mix. Secondly, excellent presentation, Chris. Please make it available to all participants.
Certainly, thank you, Sally. Those valuable points. We had local election, Wahlen, letzten Donnerstag, 2 Donnerstage vorher. Und the Labour won a lot, the Greens won a lot, the Lib Dems did, and the Conservatives did lose. So maybe this could be a good positive trend. People in England, as I say, I've got people banging at the door for the next thing. Can we, it certainly will be saved. Thank you very much for attending on an hour earlier, so to speak, in England, in Britain. And thank you very much to the audience here. And if anyone wants to come talk to Brian and myself at the stand outside, we've got some time outside. So thank you very much. And I'd love to do this again. I think people in England, if you can confirm that, I think this is, it's just standing here and seeing you on the big screen here, and you're talking to the people here, and they're waving to you from the room here. So thank you very, very much, everybody in Britain and here in Germany. I will come to a close now. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Also danke, dass